Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. Let me just get the camera all set up here. Hello, hello. Happy Thursday afternoon, everyone. It's been a few days. Just been focusing on teaching and spending time with the family. I hope you're all enjoying your week. All right, we're all set up here. So, I want to continue my multi-part discussion on outside playing. A lot of you have messaged me outside of this with questions, and really, you're so kind. Thank you so much for the compliments and everything, and thank you to those who have donated. Every little bit helps a lot, so thank you so much for your generosity. That's beyond kind of you all. So let's kind of continue. So just to kind of recap what we were talking about, we had first talked about the 3-1 substitutions, right? And again, I'm going to try to tie all these previous lessons into today's exploration. So we talked about the 3-1 substitution, remember, so that was like we took a D minor chord and then started voicing the third of that, which is F as an F major 7, or doing the same principle off the 7, right? And then we started talking about sequencing in the second one, where you take like the same idea, right, moving it through different keys and beyond. So today, we're going to kind of tie this all together, and this will probably be the last part of it for a bit because I want to get into maybe some synthesis, start using some of these fun toys and show you guys how to build some fun tones. I'll probably start with the Moog over here. But let's get into chordal voicings, my favorite thing, chordal, Q-U-A-R-T-A-L, which spell check has a real hard time accepting as a real word. So, hey, maybe we musicians, we made this up. But it's the idea of stacking in fourths, right? So typically, when you build a chord, we skip every other note, right? So let's use C major, because everyone kind of knows where C major is, or if you don't know where C major is on the piano, it's the key to the left of the two black keys, right? So when you're voicing a chord, it's 1, 3, 5, right? So 1, you skip the second note right next to it. You move to the third, you skip the fourth, which is right next to it, and you move to the fifth, 1, 3, 5, right? We've heard that sound before, right? Like, right? We can sit there and play some Bill Withers, right? So that's your typical formula for a chord, is skipping every other note, 1, 3, 5. And if you want to get, more into the jazz, some of the stuff I was showing you, 7, and then 9, and then 11, and 13. And I can get into the some more exploration of like the what we call the upper partials, or like the extensions like 9, 11, 13. Like, why would you sharp the 11? I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get there at another discussion. But let's talk about how we can reinvent the shape of this chord, right? So we've been so used to playing like chords like this, or you can invert them, right? And actually the way inverted will get us into a discussion down the line about like gospel voicings and things like that. Doing chords like that. But let's continue our discussion about playing out, right? So how do we continue to play out? How do we take these ideas, these chords, these conventional shapes, and continue to kind of turn them on their head? So let's talk about what stacking in fourths is. So fourths, right? So when we count intervals, right, the space between notes, it's literally just counting how many steps are in between your notes here. So if we start in C again, C is 1, then 1, 2, 3, 4 is F, and then another fourth is 1, 2, 3, 4 is B flat. Now, you might be like, wait a minute, but 4 is B, not B flat. Why is it B flat? Let me explain. The distance of a fourth, a perfect fourth, you have to count in half steps, white and black keys. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oddly enough, it's actually 5 half steps. So 5 half steps above F is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how you get that perfect fourth sound. Versus, remember, that's your tritone. From one of the first things I did was the tritone substitution, right? So we're stacking in perfect fourths. If you are more of an ear player, it sounds like the song Here Comes the Bride. Right, so in case you were more of like an, oral listener, oral learner rather, than like a visual learner, that's a great way to think about it. So stacking in fourths is this really great principle, right? This sound. Right, really open-ended. Now, if you're familiar with the philosophical principle of Schrodinger's cat, right? This is the example I always give to all my students. So the principle of Schrodinger's cat is that he has a box, and inside of it is the cat, right? And the box is closed, you can't see it. So the question is the cat dead or alive? Now, this is not to be morbid by any means, but think about it. It's in two states of existence, right? Because until you open the box, you have not determined whether the cat is dead or alive. Harmony, right, to tie this all in, harmony, right, is either in the major two schools of either major or minor, right? So when you stack in fourths and remove the third, which is right here, okay, or here, right? Major third, happy, minor third, sad. When you remove the third from the equation, it is both major and minor. It is surpassing common tonal structure, right? It's no longer in either school of harmony. It's in both. And this is where you can start really playing out, because if the band is playing in minor, you can almost kind of inch your way towards a major, brighter sound, or vice versa. If they're in if they're in major, you can then inch it towards a minor sound, right? So this approach is really cool, especially if you're in like an improvisational setting where there's wants to be building tension. And I showed you this last time, it's the idea of like pedaling a tone, right? So if you start in the C, right? Let's do it nice and low. That we can really hear it, right? So if you have like the C, like bass is just kind of landed on C, right? Right, all I'm doing is I'm just moving up chromatically in the same exact shape, right? I'm just doing 1 4 flat 7, 1 4 flat 7, 1 4 flat 7, 1 4 flat 7, right? Stacking in perfect force. The 1 4 flat 7 is in relationship to the bottom note of my right hand. So 1 4 flat 7 in C would be C followed by F followed by B flat, and C sharp or D flat, it's D flat or C sharp, G flat or F sharp, and B or C flat if you want to get really technical, right? It's that idea of moving. Right, so moving it in chromatic, right? So this all ties in sequencing, right? Taking the exact same shape and moving it into multiple keys at the same time, right? You're building tension already by a sense of familiarity, right? This thread that ties it all together, okay? So that's the idea of chordal voicings in one way, right? Where you can say, okay, cool, the band's jamming on this one key. Let me sidestep it. Right? Now, obviously, that's not something that you're going to land on and hold on to for a while because it's such a dissonant tone, but it builds a lot of hip tension, right? And that's the cool thing about it. Is by building a lot of this tension, if you will, you give yourself a lot of motion to, like, you know, if a guitarist is soloing, right, they can start stepping out, and then the drums can start stepping out of time. Like, everyone can kind of step out, and then you make sure that, obviously, you come back in, right? That's the other thing, is the communication within the band in that regard. So that's the first step of chordal voicings, right, is just literally stacking 1 4 and flat 7. But let's take it to the next step, okay? And this is what we're going to kind of just end today's quick lesson on, right? So the next step, this is my favorite way you can steal this. I stole this from Bill Evans. If you guys are familiar with the Miles Davis record, Kind of Blue, this is the way they voice chords on the song So What. And I remember the first time I heard it, I was so intrigued. I was like, man, I've never really heard, I mean, this is when I was, young. I never really heard that sound of chords before, so how did they build that chord, right? And it's this sound. Right? It's my favorite way to build a chordal voicing. Now, it's not in the same way chordal voicing like a 3-note chordal voicing, right? We're now dealing 5 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? Now, in your left hand and bridging into your right hand, that's still in fourth. So check this out. This is for a D minor, right? Right, so listen to that. So if we have D minor, right, so I had the D minor underneath, right? So again, I had the D minor underneath, and I built that chordal voicing on top. Listen how it interacts. Sounds pretty cool. Brings in a lot of color tones, right? So the way you build this chordal voicing, this is a really hip way, and you should be able to move this through 12 keys, right? Is you start with the root in your left hand, and you go to the fourth, and then you go to the flat 7th, right? So that's split between hands. So your left hand will play like a D and a G, then your right hand plays a C, and now you're going to be voicing, okay? So you're going 7, 3, 5. Or sorry, 7, flat 3, 5, flat 7, flat 3, 5. If you want to get really specific, right? So this D chord, you're just going 1, 4, or 11, depending how you want to think about it. Flat 7, 3, flat 3, 5. And you move it up a half step. So being able to move that chord up and down and around in a bunch of different keys is a really helpful technique as far as sidestepping, right? So again, if like the band's like, right, and then you can start moving it around. So the idea is like you can start sidestepping. So here, let me set up like a little bass loop so I can show you what I'm talking about here. So watch this, okay? So I'm going to move my chords around in my right hand, okay? Right? So the idea is that all of a sudden, right now, something that was just kind of stagnant, right? Staying on that same chord in my left hand is all of a sudden moving around. And because it's moving around so much, what you end up having is a lot more tension, right? You start building out, right? So think about like you're just pulling at your harmony and then you're snapping right back into it. And as a result, what ends up happening is this really beautiful like tension release. So this voicing Sorry, I messed that up on the descent there. But the idea is that, right, that sound is something great. So again, the formula for that is 1, 4, flat 7, flat 3, 5. Okay. So by moving through that motion, you give yourself a lot more vertical harmonic movement, right? This is not a rhythmic thing. I mean, you can obviously like, yeah, you sit there and really have fun with the rhythm. Obviously, that can be a lot of fun stuff. But this is more of a discussion of like, just how do you manipulate a pivoting point, right? Again, I've given this example for the hub and spoke, right? Same with motif development. It's the same principle. You start at the beginning. In this case, this was D minor that I started with, right? And you move around, right? So the way you determine the build, like how do I know which chordal voicing to use where? Well, the easiest way to start with the root of the song. So if the song is now an F, or actually, no, I always do F. Let's do A, right? I haven't done A yet, right? So if it's an A, you're going to go like A, D, G, right? So that's your building. 1, 4, flat 7, flat 3, 5, right? And the idea is you can still do the same idea. Chromatic motion and chromatic sequencing is really where a lot of this tension points come in. Because if you go like, let's say you jump up like a fifth or something like that, that's fine, but the problem is that the fifth is too sympathetically harmonically related, so it sounds too in. The idea is you want to make it sound like you're playing out, okay? And again, out is actually not playing out. Out is just playing in with like a fancy hat on, okay? So by moving yourself in and around chromatically, you give yourself a lot more opportunities to explore that, okay? So that's today's lesson. Let's keep it nice and short and sweet for you guys. As always, if you look at the bottom of your screen, right there, check that out. Oh, I can do like, woo, look at that, right? Donations are always appreciated. Thank you so much for those who've been generous. Like I said, every little bit helps. I am available for private lessons. If you guys have suggestions of things that you want me to cover in these, please drop me a line. But I do have time opening up in my schedule over the next few days. I'm also available for whatever you want. I think I might do a live stream concert maybe in the next few days again. That was so much fun last week. But I hope you guys all have a wonderful afternoon, and I will see you next time.